Right. I think we are live now. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part 3 of our adventure. So this should be, this is part number 3. The previous 2 videos I'm going to link to in the description of the video. And this time today, so we've done the basic work on the package, and today we're going to work, well, Tom is going to take over. Finally, I can sit back and relax. And he's going to show us GitHub Actions. What else did you say? Some files and GitHub
exactly.
secrets.
So
yeah,
some GitHub meta files. So files you can create, and GitHub will parse. So like the license file, for example. But there are also some more files, and some secrets you can do with GitHub. You don't have to, but you can, and it makes your life a bit easier, possibly or likely. And
cool.
So today it's not really about the package, it's more about GitHub and things you can do with GitHub to make your package life easier.
Okay.
And your package is also more stable, for example, like with GitHub Actions. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's start with you again.
Yeah, Ken. So I'm Susanna. I'm Laravel's founder, and I'm a web developer. Honestly, I need to work on my elevator pitch because I never know what to say about myself. But yeah, you've got it there on the screen. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, one thing I thought the last 2 weeks and always forgot, what is Laravel? So for our viewers who haven't seen the Laravel's website.
Okay, so Laravel's is a community for women, non-binary and trans developers. And we are trying to amplify, I mean, the pitch is to amplify the voices of developers. But I think in general, what I'm trying to do is not only make more women, non-binary and trans developers more visible within the Laravel community, because it seems like there aren't many, but there's quite a few of us. So I'm working to, make sure that people know about us, and so there's no more excuses, as in like, oh, we don't have any female speakers because we don't know about any. Well, now if you want to have any female speakers in your meetup or conferences, you can go to, right now, if you go to Laravel's website, you're not going to see much. However, this is going to change soon. So we're going to have a directory of all, or not all, well, I'm working on a directory of Laravel developers that you could contact. Yeah, this is the old ugly website. It's not going to be this for much longer, I promise. But yes, and other things that we are doing is, other than me building this directory of women Laravel developers, we have a newsletter, we have a Discord channel. I'm trying to encourage women to do what me and you are doing right now, to take more public role in the, be more visible in public and maybe do more learning online in public, just so that, it's not always men doing tutorials and men doing everything. Like, we are there, we exist. So I'm hoping to, help women, non-binary and trans developers to feel more comfortable being in the public eye. So
I can tell you all, there are definitely very capable or cool developers also in the female and trans and community. So I'm only in the public part of the Laravel's Discord, but some cool things already showed up there. So
yeah, it's going to and we're working. It's a work in progress. I mean, I when I see something that needs doing or that could be beneficial to the community, I try to start it. So I don't have a year-long plan. I just pay attention to what's going on in the community, and I react to what people want and need. So yeah. Okay, let's move on. We should have done that in part 1, but anyway.
We should have, but I thought better later than never.
Exactly.
So now to my part. I'm Tom, possibly also known as Gummibeer, which is my website and Twitter handle and so on. I'm web developer, primary backend focus, PHP Laravel, but also biker, part-time gamer. primary couch co-op and single player. And yeah, my latest addition to this title line is mentor. I'm trying my best and already helped some. So if you have any questions or want to get a review or whatever, you can always ping me on Twitter or email, and I will see what I can do for you. Yeah. So
thank you, Tom.
Next one is our goals. We already checked. We should have added some cool check mark here.
Yeah.
We already done all of this. So the package itself is available. For all who haven't seen it yet, it's this one. It's not really ready yet. So we are on versions 0.0.1. But we have the basic structure, and everyone can pull requests from here and do some cool stuff to improve it. I will also see what I can do to throughout the next days and weeks. So
yeah, I've done some changes to the layout of the tweet on the local side, so I just need to push it. And that, what you see there is still the last week's stuff, and I also want to fix the README, but yeah, hopefully over the weekend. But then again, it's the weekend, so it will happen. It will happen.
Today it feels like everything is weekend with Corona and home office.
It's just it is.
And last one, our links and resources. For the ones who don't know it, there are these two .new links published or maintained by GitHub. So you can quickly create a new repository or gist. There's packages we handled in the last minutes of last week's stream. So to publish a package, and there's shields.io and banners beyond code. We will handle in today's stream. And yeah, some resources here. I think Susanna has linked some now in the description. And if not, it will happen.
I will do. But you know what? Just my defense is that I have been working on the Laravel's YouTube channel, and it just it takes longer than it took longer than I assumed. So I had to download the videos from my personal account, upload them to the new one, and so I am
everything
working on
fine.
It. Yeah, but I know
you don't have to defend. Okay, so let's head over to Phpstorm.
Hi Ross, just saying, go Laravel, yay!
I will go with one of my largest packages, the Laravel translatable one. So you see here are some,
Can you
some work in progress.
Can you increase the font, please?
I can try. So how do I? It's preferences. Is it zoom?
No, it's font.
Zoom in.
Oh, this. Really? No.
Font. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is this? 16?
16, or sometimes I have 18, but 16 should be, I don't know. Go 18 if you can, so people can see really everything. Yeah.
Okay. So let's close. Also secret changes. No, nothing secret. It's just the changes for the upcoming version 12. So GitHub Actions. I think, a lot of you will have already heard about them, as they have nearly replaced all other continuous integration tools like Travis or CircleCI or also stuff, because they are so powerful, flexible, easy to integrate, and primarily really integrated into GitHub because they are made by GitHub. So GitHub Actions can do things you weren't able to do with Travis CI, for example, before. So this is the landing page for Actions. And if we go down a bit here, you see a lot of tools you can use here. So, for example, you can automatically label pull requests if they come in. So if a pull request contains a keyword, you can automatically apply the label bug fix or feature or whatever you want. You can also deploy your applications to nearly everything. So you have for sure for Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services, also Hetzner and DigitalOcean, and yeah, everything. Something I use on my packages, for example, is also this stale action, which helps you to keep your issues and pull requests clean. Because as a maintainer, you will face the situations that someone opens an issue, you respond to it, and nothing happens. So he reports, for example, a bug in his opinion, and you ask for feedback, more details, a stack trace or whatever, and nothing happens. And you don't want to go through all your open issues every day or every week and check, is it stale? Is there a new response or whatever? So the stale action here can help you a lot to automatically close your issues after, by default, for example, 7 days. For sure, you can increase it to 14 days or a month or whatever you want. You have a lot of configuration here, and a basic implementation is this one here. So every GitHub action workflow file is a YAML file, and it's placed in .github as a directory, and the subdirectory workflows.
It has to be this way.
Exactly. This has to be. This .github directory is also used for other things, like you can see here issue templates, for example, and it's the same for pull request templates. And you can also place your license file in here if you don't want it in the root directory. So yeah, this is a directory reserved by GitHub, and the workflows are in the workflows subdirectory. And every workflow has this on keyword, which lists the triggers this workflow will handle. If you check out the GitHub Actions documentation, I will show you here. There's somewhere, let's get back. The workflow syntax. And this lists all keys you can define. And for this on, for example, you have several available triggers. So you can run this workflow on push. So push is triggered if someone pushes changes to this repository. So it isn't triggered by forks, for example. So if Susanna would create this workflow triggered by push in her new Laravel package, and I fork it, do some changes, and create a pull request, these actions won't run for my changes until Susanna clicks merge. To run these workflows also on pull request, you have also this pull request trigger. And you can also limit it by branches, for example. So for pull requests, it could be that you only want to run these workflow on pull request with the main branch, or for earlier repositories, it will be master as a target. So if someone's create a pull request and targets whatever, so develop branch, for example, or any other branch, this will also not run.
Okay.
And it's the same for push. So if you want to do a final build, for example, if something is pushed to your main branch, you can limit it by push branches main, and you can push to all the other branches, and this workflow will still not run.
Okay.
Yeah. You also have a release, for example. This is super useful if you want to do deployments or binary compilation. So, for example, if you have not PHP, but an Electron app, for example, and you automatically want to create the binaries for Windows, Mac OS, and so on, you can use this release trigger, say created, which limits the release trigger to create. So it's not run if you added an existing release, for example, or if you only pre-release it. So you have here these other available types. And yeah, you can do whatever you want, like deploy a website on release or build binaries you can attach to this release. Exactly. So here you have the sub-configurations like types, branches, and tags. You can also use wildcards. So if you have a branch naming convention in your company, for example, and you want to run this workflow for all, like here, releases, branches. So if you use this full Git flows convention, or you want to do it for dev branches or feature or whatever, or tags, you can also use wildcards. And you can also ignore specific branches or tags.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do.
So path configuration is really useful if you want to trigger this workflow by every push, but only if specific files have changed.
Oh, okay.
So this is useful. I have this composer normalize. For the ones who don't know, there's this package, and I think they have changed the vendor or the owner. I will check it. No. Okay, it's the and this command or this package adds this composer normalize command, which helps you to keep your composer JSON file in specific order of these elements. So if I move this author section, for example, down here, and also change the order of my required dependencies so they aren't alphabetically ordered. And now I run composer normalize. Okay, I have to do a composer up at first. For the ones wondering, you can use shorter parts of the original command. So this is composer update in original.
Oh,
as long as the shorter part is unique, it will automatically match. Okay. So install, for example, you have to use a bit longer as there are commands with this in naming. But I can also do this, for example. I think that this is powered by the underlying Symfony process component and not process console component. And I think Artisan supports it the same way. You can do always only the first letter of these different parts, and it will match if it can match. And now you see everything is sorted back. The authors is top here. All requirements are in alphabetical order, and I'm back to only this change. And because I like it so much, I enforce it with the GitHub Actions workflow. And I run it always if the composer JSON file has changed on push. So this is a useful case of path, for example. Another one is if you want to prettify your Markdown files or JavaScript files, for example, you can use also the wildcard here. So this action is triggered for every Markdown file. I'm not sure. I think I have to use 2 asterisks to match really every Markdown file in the repository, but I only want to match the one in in the root directory.
Oh, okay. So if you have 1 asterisk, it only matches whatever's in the root directory. But if you use 2 asterisks, it will match everything within the whole repository, or within the whole project.
I think under the hood it uses the JavaScript Node.js glob function, or a one that's pretty similar, and you can also do this, for example, that matches every Markdown file in subdirectories. Possibly it could be also that you have combined them if we want to match really every Markdown file. So this one you possibly have to play a bit around with, and this is also exactly one step you have to do, and that's a bit disadvantage of GitHub Actions. There's no local way to test them. So
I was just going to ask you, how do you said like you might have to play around with the Markdown files, like how to match what you want to match. So how would you test it then to make sure
you always have to trigger it? So if you have this push, for example, and you want to test this path filter, you will have to push this action for sure. And after this, create a new push when you changed, open your Markdown and just add a line break or whatever you want. The best thing you can do is create a new repository just for playing around with GitHub Actions. And create your GitHub action you want to use. Because this one is, I always copy paste it. It's always the same. It doesn't care about the package or repository itself. It doesn't install or require any package JSON or whatever. It uses this Docker container here. It's a pretty action. And some other things here. Or the next thing is this jobs key. And this is down here. You can define multiple jobs for one workflow. So linting, for example, is a good example. If you have PHP and JavaScript dependencies in your repository, so a package JSON and a composer JSON, and you very likely want to lint both of them. So you want to run ESLint, for example, and PHP CS Fixer or Titan, TLint, or whatever tools you want to use. And to make this easier or faster, you can run them in different jobs. So you would create a PHP CS job and an ESLint job, for example. And you can configure them to run in parallel. So this is also the default. And if every job is dependent, so for example, a deployment, you only want to deploy if the test and build and linting and also stuff has passed. Does
the order of the jobs matter?
The order not. No. It's just here.
So, but can you make it so? Oh, there you go. Yeah, that answer. Well, can you make it so that if one job finishes, then you run another one that's dependent only on the first one finishing?
Exactly. So this one here, run job 1, job 2 needs job 1, and job 3 needs job 1 and job 2 to finish. So you can also do remove this one. And in this case, job 1 and job 2 will run in parallel. And job 3 will wait to that both jobs have finished.
Okay.
And You can also, no, it's this one not. No.
It was, it was cloudy and raining all day, and just as I'm doing this, I've got this sun right in my face. I'm just gonna move this way. It's gonna move.
Okay, no idea. But Circle CI users will know this already. GitHub has really improved it. So if you run a job, you have this board here, and you can zoom in and out if there's more. And if you have dependent jobs, you will have another box on the right and see connection lines between the dependent jobs. So you have a great graph and can see, so if a job runs, here will be, I think, a spinner. So you see, okay, so this is running, and after this, they get this green check. So you see, okay, so this is finished. And you can also click on each of them and see
how far
the result output here.
Yeah.
And if they are running, it's the same. So it starts with a spinner here, gets the checks here, next spinner here, and so on. If you have a longer one, like the test, so it's a really large test suite. And yeah, you also see every output here, like setup PHP and execute the tests. It also supports colored output, so you can use the ANSI flag for every command if it isn't by default, so you get cool colored output and can easily detect everything. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is for more complex setups, and I think you won't need it for packages, but it's really useful if you use GitHub Actions for your own, possibly company applications. So if you want to create a deployment pipeline or whatever. So, and something else that gets useful, because in private repositories you pay per minute, and Composer version 1, I think with 2 it's fixed, has sometimes like a hiccup and just stopped doing anything, but hasn't killed the process. And this ended in running, and 1 hour later you check and your GitHub workflow is still running. And you check your credit card and it's also running. So with timeout minutes, you can define the maximum amount of minutes this work or this job is allowed to run. So for very simple ones, like pretty up or the composer normalize command here, they finish in around 20 to 30 seconds. So it's okay to tell 1 minute. More complex ones, like a normal test one with setting up PHP, installing all the composer dependencies, running PHP unit, and so on. You will more likely have, we can see, check it out. I think it's around 1 minute also. If we go with, it's around 1 minute always. So for safety, I would say like 3 minutes timeout. But this is really helpful to not have blocking workflows, because your I don't know if it's a limit on your account or on the repository, but you definitely have a limit of concurrent workflows, or jobs. In this complex setup, for example, I think only 8 to 12 jobs are running in parallel, and the other ones are queued and waiting for any of the other jobs finish. So if one of these jobs will run forever without getting killed and not finishing itself, the waiting job won't start, and so it's also not cool. So this timeout is really helpful.
So do you have one on that job? Did you have one there?
On this one, I don't have one now.
Well, then add one.
Definitely.
Again, does it matter where in the job, in the YAML file you put it? Does the order matter or not really?
The order doesn't matter, only the level of indentation. So I think Phpstorm has added GitHub workflow YAML support in one of the last versions. So like it says here, schema validation, incompatible types, required one of blah, blah, blah.
So it will tell you if it's
I think it's
incorrectly indented.
It even helps you with auto suggestions. Like,
is it the default of Phpstorm, or do you have to install a package?
I think it's a default. I haven't installed a package, but I don't know if it's the latest public version or if it's still in the early access program one.
Okay.
So I'm on the early access, so could be, I don't know. Can I see the version somewhere? About Phpstorm here. So I'm on 2023. I don't know if it's already added in 2022.
Let me check which one do I have. I've got 2020 1.4.
You should definitely update it.
Yeah. It's not something you check often, Shouldn't it update like automatically?
No. Only minor updates. But it always tells you somewhere on the lower end here that there's an update and you should install it.
The things that I ignore.
With 2021, you are unable to use PHP 8 features.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, PHP 8 support was added in 2023.
Okay, I'm not going to update it now because I'm afraid if I touch anything.
That's the reason why I've joined the early access program, because I need PHP 8 support before official Phpstorm release for packages, and so I had to join the early access program. Another important key is this runs on. You can see it here by default. I don't know if it's really the default by GitHub, but yeah, you can pick one of these operation system versions and types. One thing to notice: GitHub Actions, if you have to pay them, so in a private repository, surprising for Linux, Windows, and macOS is different. Linux is the cheapest. Windows is like the second one, and macOS is don't use it if you don't really, really, really need it. It's like 3 times as much or something. I don't know.
Hold on, can I just? So you're saying with a private repo you have to pay for it? Does it mean that any private repo you would have to pay for GitHub Actions, or only specific, or for so any private repo you have, if you want to use GitHub Actions, you have to pay for it? Okay.
Yeah, not from the beginning. So you have these included minutes. With a free account, you have 2,000 minutes per user. With a pro or team account, you have 3,000 minutes, and enterprise 50,000. These 3,000, if you have an organization with a team plan, they are per sys organization. So it's not dependent if you have 1 or 10 or 100 members committing and pushing. So you have these 3,000 minutes. If you have 1,000 employees and everyone pushes 1 time per day and triggers a workflow running for 3 minutes, you are done with 1 day of work and have to pay for it. And here you see Linux is 0.8 cents, Windows is 1.6 cents, and macOS is 8 cents. So this is not a typo, it's really 8 cents. So 10 times as much as the Linux one.
Why?
And because macOS isn't this easy to spin up. I think for Linux, you can use whatever you want. You can use a Docker container, or there are a ton of virtual boxes or whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's relatively the same for Windows, but it's not so easy to spin up a macOS operation system. And I think it could also be some license stuff. So Apple wants to have 4 cents of these 8 cents or whatever.
Probably.
Or 10.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah. And one thing to mention here, possibly also good, all my Astronomic packages are licensed as a treeware here.
Yeah.
And it's a new kind of stuff, like Spatia has used the postcardware, for example. It's just, in theory, you are enforced if you use it on production. But for sure, I can't control it. So
good luck checking that.
But because of our current climate situation and so on, planting trees is definitely one way. And with syslink is a bit outdated, but it's redirected. With ecology, it's really easy to do. So there's this treeware forest. It's already in the top 20 of the ecology leaderboard. And you can say, give tree, just pick whatever you want. You can see it's really not this expensive. So 25 trees for €4. It isn't that you get poor and end on the street. And the connection to GitHub Actions is that every minute of you using any action for sure consumes a server. As serverless isn't really serverless. There's still hardware running your code. And our data centers are one of the of the bigger problems in our climate situation, because of all this cooling stuff you have to run for a data center. And so also you as a maintainer have the chance to keep your footprint low as possible.
To offset your damage you're doing to damage. To make it sound really bad. Every time you run GitHub Actions, you are damaging the environment. Remember that next time you're running it like twice a day.
So even if you don't have to pay for it as a open source maintainer with a public repository, you still don't have to runs on. You can use this matrix here. So don't do this. This right now only for this work in progress testing. So I can be really sure I will reduce it to this later.
That's a really, important point to raise, though. It's really good that you mentioned it. That it's not just the minutes you pay to GitHub potentially. It's the reason. There is a reason behind that. And
and you can also reduce it if you don't have a PHP application, because with PHP it's super unlikely that Windows or macOS behave different than Ubuntu. There's only a handful of functions behaving different on different operation systems. And there are only a few use cases that you need one of these functions. So in like 99% of the cases, PHP is PHP and runs the same on every operation system. But for sure, there's code behaving different of different operation systems. And if you have to test it, there are still ways like using different jobs or workflows possibly, and using the filters here. So test your code, for example, only with Ubuntu on your develop branches, and run the Windows and macOS tests only on your main branch. So after merging, or possibly even only before releasing. So if you put it into a release branch, these are also possibilities. You keep your workflow time, so also your feedback time, as your developers have to wait for finishing all these jobs. But also your footprint as small as possible.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So the next important part here is strategy. It's like the configuration in containing this matrix and so on. So on which kinds of configurations your workflow runs. By default, you only have one. Like here, it says it timeouts after a minute, it runs on Ubuntu, and it has these two steps. So it checks out the code, runs the prettifier, and it's done. And that's it. And like you have seen on GitHub, this workflow creates like, I think it was 20 jobs. So this is done by the matrix. So you can see I haven't done a lot in the last days. You create a matrix of all these variables. So I run on PHP 8 and 7.4, on Laravel 8 and 7. I use these prefer lowest and prefer stable flag for Composer install down here, or Composer update. And also every of these runs on Ubuntu. And I can also use this include to add new variables. So for every job that has the Laravel 7 configuration, independent of PHP dependency version or operation system, it will add the test bench version 5 variable.
Yeah.
And yeah, same for, if it's Laravel 8, it will be test bench 6. You can also say primary if you support a large range of Laravel versions. Oh, this was caps. Exclude like Laravel, I don't know, I think it's 6. Doesn't have support for PHP 8. So if I would add Laravel 6 up here, it will exclude the configuration that will use Laravel 6 and PHP 8. So it won't run Laravel 6 on PHP 8 with prefer lowest, prefer stable, and on Ubuntu, these will be killed. One thing you can do with include is also adding totally new configurations. So, for example, if you want to run PHP with, I don't know, just use this right now, run your tests on the latest nightly build of PHP. Don't take this for granted. This could be different, but you know what I mean. And only use the latest Laravel version for it. You can add this here. It will be also prefer dependency version. Stable and OS Ubuntu latest. If you add a totally new configuration, you have to define all metrics variables you want to use. So that's why I also define this dependency version and OS right here. Because otherwise these two variables will simply be undefined.
Yes, should you add them to the two above ones as well, to the Laravel 8 and Bench 6? Should they all have the same thing?
Oh yeah. This one as well. So really define everything. So GitHub will go here, see, okay, you want to include something for PHP nightly. Go up here and see, okay, nightly isn't part of this, so I will start a totally new configuration.
Okay.
So it won't use any of these. And another thing you can define here is fail fast, which means if you have 20 jobs right now here, and if any of these jobs fails, all other jobs will be killed right away. So if one of your tests fails, all running jobs will be killed and all pending jobs won't start.
Okay.
This can be useful to save execution time. It can also be problematic if you need feedback for all environments, because this can also be result in you fix the problem with PHP 8 and Laravel 7, for example. And because the configuration of Laravel 8 with PHP 7 has been killed, you push the fix for 8 and 7 here, and the workflow runs again, and this now passes. But you see, okay, I also have a problem with Laravel 8 and PHP 7.4. And so this is a bit up to you. You have to see which problems you face in your continuous integration. And if it's useful to you to just kill everything or run everything to the end.
Okay.
And you can use the matrix variable also here on the runs on, for example. So this will use, if I would add the Windows latest, for example, here again, the variable defined here will be used in the runs on up here.
Yeah.
So
okay.
And you can also use them right in the name here. So you can see on GitHub, you can quickly see, okay, so this is a test for PHP 7.3 with Laravel 8, prefer stable on Ubuntu. And this is the one for PHP 7.2 on Laravel 6. Yeah.
Okay.
And going back here. The really important part for each job is these steps here. So every code-related workflow will, nearly always start with this users actions checkout, which just means check out the repository. You have, if I go here, view workflow file. Oh, some and backs they were linked, so you could click here to see which repository it is, but you can also just copy it. So here, and you see this usage example. So if you want to check out, for example, a different repository, you can define it here. You can check out a different reference. By default, it will be always the reference that triggered the workflow. But if you want to check out, because of whatever reason, another commit, you can define it also. If you do things like this, it's likely that you have to define your own GitHub access token, because the one used by the workflow, there is one defined or created by default, but it's limited to to this repository, I think. So exactly, the token's permissions are limited to the repositories that contains your workflow. So with this automatically created GitHub token, you can't check out a different repository as long as it's private. If it's public, you for sure can check out it. Yeah, you can also do the same with SSH here. You can check out a given path or to a given path. Large file system support. Also loading submodules if you use Git submodules. Yeah. But in most cases, it will be enough to just say actions checkout, and you are done. One thing, the name here is optional. So if you want to have a shorter configuration YAML, you can remove the name. So it's just for the GitHub Actions UI, so you don't see this ugly actions/checkout, but just the pretty checkout code. Can be really helpful in cases like this here. Install dependencies is definitely clearer than a truncated composer require, and it will end somewhere here. Yeah. The next one is this actions cache, which is a bit outdated in this repository. So let's go to another one. Yeah. GitHub provides a cache between runs of workflows. So for Composer, for example, you can cache the Composer cache between runs, so that you save a bit of download time. Because it has the files on the local system. So it's also available as version 2 already. You have these with path is the directory you want to cache. So it will cache everything in home Composer cache files. And key is the cache key. It's like Redis or whatever, key value storage. So in this case, it will be dependencies. Laravel includes the Laravel version we are running here. It also contains the PHP version we are running. And there's this helper function, hash files, which will create I think it's an MD5 hash of Composer JSON. So if your Composer JSON changes, your cache key will be different. And here we aren't doing it. But so it's this one. You also have this restore keys, in which you can list shorter versions of this cache key. So for Composer, for example, the Composer cache is nearly always helpful, even if the Composer JSON has changed, because it's likely that we only have added or possibly even removed a single dependency, but a lot of dependencies are still the same and can be reused. So this is the first key we try. If this key doesn't exist, we try to get the last cache with the same Laravel and PHP version, ignoring the composer JSON. And if this key also doesn't exist, we try to find the latest cache with the same Laravel version. And yeah, here, if even we don't find a cache for the same Laravel version, we will just take the latest cache, independent of Laravel and PHP and whatever. Just take any cache you can find. A lot of updates here. This is not an official one by GitHub, but a community one, and it's likely the official one for PHP developers, as it helps you to set up your local PHP environment. So yeah, you can see a lot of things you can do with it, and you can configure different PHP versions. So that's what we are doing here. We reuse this matrix PHP variable of up here. And so I don't have to care like on other continuous integrations. You have to do this apt-get install PHP, and all the stuff isn't part of GitHub Actions. You can define extensions you want to use. So this is a pretty default string. We don't use all of these extensions, but some are used by Composer, for example, like the zip one, and PDOS Collide we use for PHP unit. DOM and curl are just defaults. MB string is required by Laravel. Yeah. You can define coverage tools if you want to get code coverage. And so what do you have here? Yeah. So this extension support, and here's the coverage. You can use xdebug, PHP conf, and disable it. You can also use PHP debug here. And yeah, if you don't want coverage reports, I can recommend to use none, because it will speed up your execution time of PHP unit. And we've skipped these tools. You can also install typically PHP tools like somewhere here is a Composer Normalize, for example, Blackfire, PHP unit, even if you don't have it in your Composer JSON, Psalm, and so on. You can define these tools here, and you can use them like if you have done a Composer global require PHP unit, for example.
Yeah.
So
how is this file, how does it differ between projects, or do you pretty much copy paste this most of the time? Because that's a lot of setup.
A lot of times I only copy paste it, because it's nearly always the same for every project.
Yeah.
You want to check out it, you have this cache for Composer, you want to define your PHP environment with version extensions and possibly coverage or tools. It's always nearly the same for, let's say, organization or company environment. So it's unlikely that you use xdebug in one project and PHP conf in another project. If you do, just change it here.
Yeah.
So then you have to do this Composer install and update things here. You want to run your PHP unit tests, and yeah, so it's nearly always the same.
Yeah.
So only thing that changes or really changes is most times the matrix. So so it's different between packages and projects. You have packages only running on PHP 8. You have some running on 8 and 7.4, or possibly even 7.3. You have different Laravel versions you support. This one is nearly always the same. I can really recommend it for package developers, because it's pretty easy to forget about your lower bounds in the Composer JSON, because you always do this Composer update on your local machine, and only run on the latest version. And yeah, sometimes you use or possibly use a method introduced in Laravel 7.15, for example. And you still have it here on 7.0 because on your local machine it runs as it has installed the latest Laravel 7, which is 7.24 or whatever. And you don't see it. And with prefer lowest, Composer will try to install the lowest versions possible with your constraints here. So if nothing requires a PHP 7.15, for example, it will install PHP 7.0. Not PHP, sorry, Laravel.
Yeah.
It will install Laravel 7.0. And then you will run your PHP unit test, and it will explode somewhere in your source code because you have called whatever method was introduced later. And then you can see, okay, I have to upgrade the requirement for Illuminate database, for example, because something changed in Laravel 7.15. And then you can write 7.15, push it, run it again, and it will pass. So and this possibly doesn't sound important for most developers because nearly every developer does a Composer update. But I know some companies, primarily the ones also sticking to long-time support releases, which is also not a good idea for Laravel, but it's a different topic. They don't want to update dependencies. They just say never change the running system. Laravel 7.0 works, and we won't leave it. So possibly they even have this constraint in their local project. And if you now require this package that uses code introduced in Laravel 7.15, they will simply unable to run it because they will face the issue. You will face the same if you don't if you run it with the prefer lowest here. So it's just an easy way to check that your Composer constraints are really the lower constraints and not just somewhere around Laravel 7 it will work. So with this run you can just run no it was drag and drop. You can just run shell commands, so Composer, PHP, whatever you want here with this vendor PHP unit. So just run a command. And that's pretty it about this one here. I can show you.
This is really you would have to copy paste it most of the time because there is a lot to remember, a lot that can be done.
I will have to.
It's amazing how much we developers rely on copy pasting.
So, this is a real project, a real Laravel application using Postgres database. And sorry, I have to close it because my MacBook doesn't like too much Phpstorm instances. So this one uses Postgres, and you can spin up this Postgres instance with this services key here. So if we go to Chrome and strategy services. Is there any sheet list which services? No. Somewhere they have a cheat list which services are available, but most common, so like Nginx, Redis, Postgres, MySQL are available. You can configure them with a specific image here. You want to use this as a Docker image, environment variables to pass to this image, options you want to use. You can use port mapping. So if you want to use a different port, just change it. And this way you can test your application with a real database. Because I know in application context, it's sometimes that you write or choose Postgres because of PostGIS plugin, for example, because you use geo data with coordinates, and you have some PostGIS specific queries, and you are simply unable to run your project on SQLite, MySQL, or whatever because of these Postgres specific queries. So you have to spin up a Postgres for your test environment. So this is also possible with this service key here. And yeah, you see this is a real project, but it's nearly also the same. Checkout, setup PHP.
Yeah.
This is a dynamic way to get the composer cache for this path here. So if you remember, here we have a hardly defined path, which doesn't always work with Windows primary, because Windows has these other slashes for paths and also sometimes some different namings for directories. So you can use the output of commands of steps. Important for this is that the step has an ID. So the ID of the step is composer cache, and we run this composer config cache files here. If I copy it and here, so these are just some warnings of my composer, but here you see the full directory of my cache files, and this here is a bit of prefixing stuff required to get this as output. I don't know the output. Yeah, here for example.
Yeah.
Okay, you even can configure the outputs before the steps, but this also works.
Yeah.
And at the end, you get a new variable. So here, steps, the ID of the step, outputs, and the name of this output. So one step can have multiple outputs in theory, but we want the directory one. So this is the safe way to use a cache, for example. But it's still the same with the cache. We use the composer cache here. We run composer install. In this case, with a secret we manage on GitHub, because we have some private repositories we use as packages. And at the end, we run our quality assurance tools, so PHP, code style, tlint, PHP unit, PHP insights, and all this stuff. This one is also helpful. Upload artifacts, and this if. We could also use this one. Always means runs this always on failed and some successful jobs. If failed means runs the step only with if the job has failed. And I don't know if there is an if success. I think it's the default if you don't have an if. And the upload artifacts uploads a defined file or path will zip it, and you can access it. No. wrong one. Summary. Yeah. So if I would have an artifact, you will have a widget here listing your artifacts, and you can download it, which is useful for logs, for example, because sometimes PHP unit doesn't list the real problem. It only says the test has failed. If you do API testing, for example, with fake requests, you will get an response status doesn't match 200 because it is 500, but you don't know, okay, which exception has created this 500 status code. So it's helpful to get this the access to the Laravel log file. Yeah. But you see, it's pretty similar to our package one.
Okay. So when you create these files, is that all you have to do, or do you need to register them somehow at GitHub, or once you push the repository up, or once you push them up, they will all get registered and run?
You just have to push it by default.
Okay.
You can go to the settings and actions. So if you have a good administrator, he will likely don't use this allow all actions, but limit it to selected actions or local ones or whatever. In this case, it's possible primarily this one that you have to add it here. But by default, it's this one, allow all actions, so just push it and it will run if the trigger is triggered.
It says regardless of who authored it and where it is defined. So what do they mean by where it is defined? I thought it can only be defined in that GitHub directory.
The workflow has to be defined in your repository. But you have these steps like users, actions, checkout, for example.
Yeah.
And these are what they mean with actions. So these are just Docker containers sometimes, or I think there is a Node.js environment you can use to create your own actions. But it's foreign code. You don't have control. You can partly control it if you define a more precise version constraint here, for example.
Yeah.
But you still don't have control over it. So for these official GitHub actions, it's pretty okay to use them. And also this one, for example. But it could be that you find an action somewhere on GitHub that looks cool, but is created by a malicious user who creates something pretty and cool to get some users on and pushes a new minor release. So, or even fix release possible to get all user install it. And actions have access to everything in your workflow environment. So to your code of your repository, to your secrets you have to define, your environment variables, and all the stuff. So it's definitely
dangerous.
Yeah, a dangerous thing, and you have to trust them, like with installing composer dependencies.
Yeah.
So it's also a kind of trust, because if I would be a malicious developer, I could do some curl call somewhere in my service provider, for example, and send your whole application configuration somewhere to my server and push it in a fixed release, and you run composer update. And even if it's only the local environment of a single developer and he immediately notices it, I still have all the configuration variables of this local environment, which will possibly also contain some secrets, like possibly only sandbox credentials for Stripe or whatever, but still secrets.
Yeah.
And it's very unlikely that the developer will notice it. So he will do a composer update, everything runs fine.
That's one thing. Like when you say, Yeah, even if they notice, how would the developer notice that something malicious is going on? How can you notice? You
Checking
can't.
his developer network log of his whole machine, going through vendor files. There
It's
isn't
just tricky, like,
really an easy way.
yeah, and there's like basically like 99% of internet runs on those packages, like whether it's npm or Composer. And it's like, it always worries me. Like, I'm thinking it's just so easy to do something malicious.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that there must be some sort of protection, but I don't know if there is.
No, there isn't. So only way you can protect it is checking your vendor files. I don't know if there are tools like possibly Blackfire with some plugins or some other tools that help you to debug your code and will list the curl call, for example. So I think Blackfire could do it. I'm not a Blackfire expert, but so there's one tool that comes to mind that analyzes your whole runtime and lists all heavy things you are doing. Like curl call is a heavy thing. It requires like 100 milliseconds or 200 milliseconds. And so it's likely that this could be discovered with a tool like Blackfire. But a good way to do it, for example, would also be some adding some conditionals, like only do it on production server. And possibly even don't do it synchronously, but push it to the queue. Nearly every application uses a queue. And yes, Hamed, it's Blackfire, but I think without a white space. It's a pretty mighty tool created by Symfony core team, but also compatible with every other PHP application, which helps you to find like loops, so endless loops or long-running loops, recursive method calls, and heavy method calls. So if you have a method that runs for 200 milliseconds or a second or whatever you have as a threshold, it also shows you a graphic graph of your stack trace.
Is it this one?
Exactly. So there was also a presentation by, I think it was Rias on the Laracon EU, who created an algorithm in PHP that created an image only of triangles with a real JPEG as a template. So check out this call. He uses Blackfire to optimize this code. It's a good presentation, I think.
Who was it again? Do you remember?
I think it was Rias. Laracon EU. This is the one in January for our for us European people, and I'm lucky that it's still this the old page. So somewhere down here, I think it was a side talk, so possibly not listed here.
But I do have, I found it. Well, let me just post a link. YouTube. There's a video on YouTube. Is that the one? We should be able to. Okay, that's really, that's pointless. Just Google or go on YouTube and look for Blackfire under the hood, Blackfire Laracon EU Online 2021.
Yeah. Blackfire was a sponsor of Laracon EU this year, I think. So there are some videos of Blackfire.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Exactly. And I think, if I remember correctly, there was a package on NPM, and the developer decided to test this approach. So he wasn't a real malicious developer, but he wanted to raise awareness of it. So he created a package. I think it was one that allows to create colored output on console commands.
Yeah.
In the easy way, like just calling red method and so on, and put in the text and get red text. And he got a lot of users, so really millions, because also a lot of other packages used his code in their packages, and you know the chain. And after this, after he got a lot of users, he put in not a malicious thing, but a simple ping call. So every installation of this package has sent a ping to one of his URLs. So he knows, okay, it was installed on this machine. And I think there was also a payload like host name or something like that. So nothing really dangerous, but still enough to showcase I can send a request to whatever I want with payload whatever I want from your machine after you installed my package. And yeah, he pushed it out in a release, and some minutes, hours later, he got millions of pings.
Wow.
And it wasn't discovered for weeks. So this shows how dangerous this whole package and open source ecosystem is, and how important it is to trust your open source developers.
Yeah.
So
it is scary. Yeah. What's the alternative? Just build everything ourselves.
This was the alternative, like it's not this far. I think around 6-7 years ago. It was still this when I started my career as a trainee, and companies said, no, we don't use open source. Open source is not dangerous, but bad, because at this time, I think there wasn't even Composer. It started 1 or 2 years later. And open source were really, just some script kiddies playing around and putting out some code, except some very few libraries, like Swift Mailer, for example. Or PHP itself, for sure, is also open source. But this open source ecosystem we have right now with Titan and Laravel and Spathia and all the people pushing out free code for everyone to use wasn't there. And the developers who did it this time weren't this experts or created quality code. So companies usually said, no, we don't use it. We write everything our own. And even if there was quality code, they rejected to use it. And then, it really happened during 2 or 3 years. The whole business of internet and agencies and all the stuff doing websites changed from we are doing everything our own to why isn't there an open source package for it? So from
that is a package,
fully rejecting to use any open source code to expecting that there is open source for everything they want. And this is a complete turn. And the downside of it is that before, companies had to pay their own developers for everything. So if they needed like activity log, for example, for Laravel, if Laravel would exist, they had to write it them on and can't just do Composer requires Spathia activity log and done. And this would take like, let's go easy, 1 hour of work for one people, for example. So don't know, $800 for. So, and now they save these $800, but don't give it to someone, to no one, not the employees they have, not the open source maintainers. They depend their whole business on it. And it's not about these, let's name them, not in a bad meaning, but these secondary open source maintainers like me and Spathia and so on, creating packages, but we have a fundamental layer of open source dependencies like Redis, PHP, all these C libraries and all this stuff maintained by a few people, sometimes a single one like Redis, for example. I think it was Redis where said the maintainer said, it was end of last year or beginning of this year, said the maintainer of Redis said, I don't want to maintain it anymore. It's too much work. It has grown too much, and I don't have time to it. And this is a really dangerous situation because we all use Redis for Horizon, for cache, for whatever, for sessions. And if the maintainer steps down, you could end up in two situations. You have an organized handover. So there's a secondary maintainer, for example, who's on board since some years and knows the history and all the stuff and can just take over. Or you end in a chaos situation of everyone forking Redis just to keep sure the source code is secured and maintained somewhere, and everyone scripting around and just doing whatever they want, and you end up with 1,000 different Redis, and this isn't the goal we want to have. And so it's something companies could protect their own from if they would pay at least these maintainers of these fundamental open source packages. It's really not about me and Spacia. If my packages would go away, no one would care. Or possibly some thousands would have to create their own translatable logic, but they still would have this code. And it's working. But with Redis and Apache, Nginx, PHP, and all these things are open source and don't have most times any funding. So PHP has Sand, and I think Nginx has also an enterprise plan. But it's they are paying their open source work with their own product. And if no one or not enough use this enterprise product because the open source one is enough, there isn't any money.
Well, I think it's important to raise awareness of this because, like you said, like a lot of big projects rely on open source, yet they don't seem to do anything to make sure that it keeps on running.
Also, Composer, for example, it's maintained or primarily maintained by two people.
Really?
There are two primary maintainers of Composer. And they are funding their work only by packages.com. So the private version of packages. So here you can see these are the two primary maintainers of Composer.
Wow.
It's
thank you, Jordi, or Jordi.
And
Jordi.
Niels. Niels is also from Germany, so I'm pretty proud.
Yay, go Germany.
And these are the heroes of PHP because, let's be honest, PHP wouldn't the current situation without Composer. So Composer is the base for everything, for Symfony, for Laravel, for all the packages we do in our free time. And if you check out, here's the sponsoring. There are 87 people sponsoring Celdec.
Hold on, but is it that what are the tiers? There are tiers you can I
am sponsoring, so I have to select a new tier.
Oh, okay.
1,
so you can
5, 25, 100.
It's really I mean, any job, whatever it is, if you are employed, you can just leave and the company will have to deal with it. But in a way, if you're an employee, the company should make sure that you're not the only one that knows what you're doing. So if you go on holidays, you're ill, or you leave, that the company just doesn't stop. So this is like a common sense every company should do. Yes, there doesn't seem to be the same common sense when it comes to open source, that they have no no control over whether the maintainers, what they're doing, how much time they spend, how much time they can spend. It's really fragile situation.
Jordi is kind of lucky with 87.
Yeah.
Niels has 6.
6, seriously? Come on, let's all sponsor Niels. Can we hold on? Let me. I'm gonna tweet him after we finish.
Some more silent heroes of our ecosystem. So like Symfony, I always forgot his GitHub handle. It's a cool one. Always I see it, but yeah, Fabbot, exactly.
Which one?
Fabbot, Fabian Potentia. I hope it's spelled correctly. I'm not French, so 52. And he's a creator of Symfony and the base of Laravel. Laravel wouldn't exist without Symfony. So, and these are the unsung heroes of our PHP and open source system. And to get back to our package thing.
Hold on, there's Hamed. Hamed is asking, can we trust the packages that are only made for local and not for production? Well, like what you said, even though that package, the guy you mentioned that just made the terminal output different color, even if it was just locally, he would still send a ping to. Or did I understand correctly? So even though it's used for local development only.
I think he means if you have a project, you have your local environment on your own machine, and you have the production environment on your DigitalOcean server, for example. But I don't, and I think the packages you mean are like IDE helper and Laravel debug bar, for example, if I'm correctly. And for these, it's not recommended because they contain malicious code, but it's recommended because they contain some ways malicious user could get details of your application that they shouldn't be able to get because they have some public HTTP APIs, for example. So the debug bar, you can disable them with an environment variable, but the easier way is to just keep them out by using them as a required dev and not as a require, so just as a develop dependency. Like you have PHP unit and mockery, and with Laravel, or what was it, 5.6, 5.8 or something like this, we got this Laravel discover command, which can automatically discover all service providers in your vendor directory. And this is pretty useful because before you had to put them in your app configuration on your own, if you remember. And this was a bit tricky with packages like IDE helper and debug bar because you had to register these service providers by condition. And this is now super easy. If you have a dev dependency and it doesn't exist, Laravel won't discover it. And if it exists, Laravel will discover it. So that's it. So this discover command make it really easy and improved having dev dependencies with service providers a lot. And to get the turn to our, we should publish the first secret. It's now 1.5 hours.
Yeah, come on. I said we're gonna make it shorter this time. Come on.
No, we have a good talk here, and
yeah, and it's like it's a Friday thing. It's just a Friday thing to have a 2-hour chat now. So
there's a way you can maintain these license. No, I think license isn't. But this funding YAML, for example, contributing Markdown code of conduct files in a single place throughout all of your repositories. So if I close some of them and go to Laravel translatable, if you go here, you don't see any of these contributing or code of conduct, for example. But I think it's insights and community. exactly. If you go here, you see that I have a README, I have a code of conduct, I have a contributing, a license, issue templates. Yeah.
Can you link to them though? Because like normally people would expect to see them in the root directory. So can you link to those files?
Yeah.
If you include them in README, for example.
You can. This view is public, so every user can click on Insights Community and just see all the stuff and click off Code of Conduct and see this version I have in this.github repository. So naming is important. It has to be .github, like the .github directory we had in our repository.
Yeah.
And from there, it's the same structure. So everything you could place in here, except workflows for sure, you could have in here. And linking is possible, but you have to keep in mind that it hasn't a relative path to your repository. So if you go here, I don't know if you can see it, but here on the down left,
.github.
It's astronomic.github. And if we click the edit pen, goes somewhere down here, contributing, you see that I have this absolute link, https github astronomic.github. So you can link to them for sure, but you have to link to the version in this repository and not to any magic link in this one. This could be a way GitHub could improve this feature. So you get a magic version of this contributing markdown, for example, inside of this. So I could do like contributing MD.
And it will automatically find its way,
but this
I'm just saying,
cool.
like it's good because I mean, at least for me, I would usually look for those files in the root directory. I wouldn't look for them in Insight. So yes, they are there available, but unless people know this is where you look for them, they will not know. So that's why I mentioned linking to them from the README.
GitHub has fully integrated them here. So exactly. So if you have full resources, I can click GitHub contributing, and you see I also end up in the astronomic.github repository. This time the commit-specific version to the latest commit, but still the one in this repository. And also code of conduct. Yeah. So it's fully integrated in GitHub itself. The only thing you have to do your own is linking in the README, for example.
Yeah.
And one thing, because we talked about sponsoring money and funding and all the stuff, is the funding YAML. You've likely seen these new buttons up here with a pink heart. If you click it, you get this pop-up, and this is configured in this funding YAML. You can define, I think, up to 5 GitHub usernames you want to, or who have sponsoring enabled. And you want to get sponsored. So, for example, I've now kind of employed Sarah, and if Sarah would get her own sponsor profile, I could list her here. I could also think about getting an official astronomic and put it here. It works with issue hunt. You can also add custom links like I've done here. So this treeverse thing is linked. And the absolute beauty of this is it's one central point. So if I go here and would add now, like I have an now official astronomic sponsoring page, for example, I put this here, save it. It would change throughout all of my repositories. So I would have astronomic here. I would have it in the Laravel web mentions package, and the PHP vCard package, and in every package. this is the beauty of this central.github repository.
Yeah.
Because it shares these things across all your public repositories, which is
So yeah, this
really
is which
great.
I need to like make sure that, because I haven't realized it's for the main it's for the parent repository, not for each individual one. So yeah.
Sparse, for example, doesn't use this until now.
Come on.
I have to blame them now. And if you go to .github, you see this funding, and if you check out here, you see
nothing.
Something has changed it when Sparse got an official GitHub sponsor page. And
yeah.
If you check, is it here? No. History. So, and this has to be done in every repository, and Sparse has around 200 whatever.
Do they know about this secret? Maybe you should tell them. By the way,
yeah,
do you know?
I will send Frake a link to this minute pointer when I started to talk about the .github repository.
This is really clever, yeah. So it changes for all the, it's really clever.
In my case, if you wonder why I have this treeware MD file here, for example, it contains a template. So I have this little repo updater, which is a Node.js utilizing this OctoKit package by GitHub. I should stop to click everything. It's a bit dirty, but it works. It can send changes to all my public repositories. So if I have this update treeware here, for example, it calls the update readme, and it uses this treeware MD file and search for the treeware headline. So in every new package, I only have to place the treeware headline, and will automatically get the whole treeware section there. So there's a little helper here. This update labels is also cool. You have for new repositories the possibility to define default labels. Where is it? Repository defaults. And here you have labels, so you can define all the labels you want to get, also with these colors. So by default, you get some not so pretty colors. So if you have a style guide, or like I'm doing here in Astronomic, want to get some of these softer colors, you can define them here, but it's all only available for new repositories. And this means if you configure it now and already have 20 repositories, you have to change this in all 20.
Yeah.
And this is something that this method makes easier. It also uses this update label endpoint of the ECU's OctoKit, so it's the REST API. And I've listed all my labels I want with a matching color code here, and sent the label updates to all my packages. So
this is easy. Really impressive, yeah.
And I've also have these delete file because these are the files you are able to define in this .github repository. So it's funding, code of conduct, contributing, security markdown, support markdown. And
so how do you run this file then? How do you, at what point and how?
I run it on my local machine because it is not perfect now, because if a package a repository requires multiple changes, so like I have to delete 2 files and updates readme 3 times. I haven't fixed it yet because it works somehow. It has these commit reference problems because the second commit tries to send its changes to the reference of the commit before the first change. So I update the README the first time. So I have the commit reference 1. And now I changed my README the first time because I had the trivia section, which gets the commit reference 2. And after this, I update the README with the contributing section here, for example. And this one now gets a problem because it tries to send its update to reference 1 and not reference 2.
Get it.
This is a problem with this OctoKit client here, and I bet it's fixable, but I don't want to waste time to it. So I just run this command in a loop until it passes and no exception is thrown, and everything is fine after it. So if you check out like the whole commit history, there's update readme, update readme, update readme, these but you will find these things in some of my repositories when I had to here delete code of conduct, delete of code of update. Some of these spam commits don't care about them. But it's just a presentation that this OctoKit client is pretty more powerful. And this is also a possibility you could do with GitHub Actions. And one thing I'm doing here is also sharing the same GitHub Actions across all my repositories. I have this workflow shared. C3, Composer Normalize, Markdown Normalize, and stale issues, because C3 are really the exact same for every repository. So run tests could be slightly different because of these Laravel differences and PHP version differences. But these are exactly the same. So I will send C3 through all my repositories. And now I'm reading the comment. Is there any resource guidance about the config? There is. You have to know about it, but as there is, just have to Google it. Possibly without this. No. Possibly we have to put it into quotes. Match. And this is the documentation for the code of conduct file. And somewhere here, it's mentioned exactly creating a repository for default files. So it's not even a real documentation page on its own. It's only mentioned in how you can create.
Just like,
So, and here it tells you create a new repository, select the user or organization you want to create it for. You have to name it .github. It has to be public. And initialize it with a .readme, so you can do changes in the GitHub UI. Without this initial README file, you aren't able to do this and create repository. And then you can create all of these files, code of conduct, contributing, funding. There's also a config YAML for issues and templates and also stuff, security and support. And you can also create issue templates.
This is really, I never thought about it. I never looked into it because it's a
similar secret to what you are able to do with this repository named by Nuno. Named by your own name. So I know that Nuno has one. And exactly.
So when you create I know about that secret. Oh, I know a secret. When you create a repository of your own username, you will get to style the landing page, the GitHub user landing page, pretty much.
And you have to create the README, and everything you put in the README is displayed. on your user profile. So you can do some pretty image and text and whatever stuff you want to do here that you can't do on the site. Another possible secret, I can't show it on Nuno, or I can, is this, you have this Twitter handle down here. So what I can't show is how you get there. So it's just open your own profile, edit profile, and put it here. Some people have their Twitter URL in their website. So now you are able to define your website and your Twitter.
Okay, cool.
Which is also useful. So Sarah did it. I have to give credits where needed. And on our astronomic landing page, if you check out Frake, for example, Frake has it. These informations are available via API. And so I can display the Twitter, and Frake is a perfect example because he has the Twitter feature and the Twitter URL in his website.
Oh, poor Frake! Like, we can't pick up on him. Like, choose a different person.
So David has it. His website and Twitter handle, and
we need to tell him, Frake, you need to watch this. You've been mentioned a lot.
And one thing also important for your GitHub Actions. I have to open another one. So like, let's take the astronomic website. Here it is. And it's a deploy one. And here you can see this secrets variable, and also down here. Primary for deployments, it's likely that you have secrets. So like the img signing key, Netlify out and site ID, a special GitHub token, whatever you need, font awesome token for the pro version of font awesome. And you don't want to put some in plain text in your workflow file, so don't do it. Not in private and primarily not in public repositories.
Don't do it. Don't do it. I wouldn't, by the way. I mean, you looked at me. I wouldn't.
And to still manage this, you have this GitHub repository settings, and can go to secrets. And I don't have to care about publishing any secrets. So you have these repository secrets.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I have no idea. It's let's take the website.
So you reference them in your code, but the actual secrets are on GitHub. Yeah, got it.
It's like the .env file, for example, and using it in your config.
And I think Heroku also has something that I've used Heroku for one project, and they also possibility to add the secrets to the Heroku dashboard and then reference them from your config.
Also, Circle CI has a Travis CI, so this is a pretty common way to do it. And you can create a new repository secret for sure. Just key value, so put in your name, add the value, and save it.
Cool.
And one cool thing why I really like to do all open source stuff in organizations and not my private user account, I can tell you some more reasons, is that you have organization secrets, for example. So my Netlify out token, for example, could be the same because it's one per account. And if I use one astronomic Netlify account, it will be always the same. For sure, I could also do for every repository, but it could be the same. So I can create it as an organization secret, and this will be available in all repositories. So I don't have to care about this. Or similar is the font awesome token, which is always the same because it's the same account I'm using.
Yeah.
And you have some more. So like if you use Nova and have a team license, you can put in your Nova token and credentials here.
Yeah.
So you can use the same secrets in all your repositories without always have to go to, if you have a new project, go to settings, secrets, create it.
Create them, yeah.
You have to manage it, so you always have to search where is the token saved, and most time you end up with generating a new one because in a team, developer A has created it for repository 1 and hasn't saved it in the password manager, and now developer 2 needs it, and you know the stuff.
Yeah.
And
okay, cool.
One thing I've seen now is environment secrets. I can show this also with the Astronomic website. This is a key they've introduced lately. Where it is. Oh, is it here? No, I have to show it on my own website. There it is.
Could you use these? So these are only action secrets, right? Like you wouldn't use any other, like the Twitter things we use, the Twitter keys.
No.
So these are only for action.
Yeah, but I have it here. You would put in your Twitter keys as secrets for this repository to use them in your CI, so in your GitHub Actions.
Okay, yeah.
And here I have this deploy, and there's this environment. You have a name and can put an URL. So this is a deployment for production. If you would have a development or staging environment, it would be named staging, dev, whatever, and change the URL. And if I go to on here, I see environments on the right and have this prod environment. And I can see all deployments for this environment. So the latest deployments for this environment. I can go here to check out the deployment itself. See it here. And the actions, if I have the deployment, I can see the URL of the environment I've deployed to right in the action. So I see it passed, so I can click here and see my website and see, okay, everything is fine. I've ride a lot of bike and...
Yeah, a lot of... Do you see the time? I mean, come on. Well, is the time in minutes or hours, by the way?
No, there wasn't a time. Is there a time? It was kilometers.
No, time to the right, see?
Time in hours.
Oh, hours, okay.
H, yeah.
Yeah. Whew, okay. Is it like a bike as a bicycle or bike as a motorbike? Like,
no, bicycle.
Bicycle.
Only muscle power.
Sorry. It could be, you need to be specific, because if it's like a motorbike, it's not that impressive anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is environment secrets. So if I have different secrets for my production and staging environment, for example, I can put in some here in the environment secrets. So I can use the same name like DigitalOcean key, because I'm deploying to DigitalOcean, and I have different ones for staging and production. I can use DigitalOcean key here as a name of the secret and have different values for production and staging.
Yeah.
So it's super powerful. Something you also can do. I'm switching a lot of repositories right here. Is this social preview image? So
okay.
If I take this and
when you link to it,
exactly, and go to Twitter and
Twitter card,
put in this thing, I get this large, pretty.
If you didn't have this image, what would it show? Actually, I don't know. I never. So to think about it. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
it's
it will
good,
just
yeah.
grab the first image on the page, so your organization or user avatar.
Yeah.
If you don't have this, it will just be empty. But it's definitely this small link card and not the cool large one you want, because larger cards are clicked more likely.
Are they really?
Yeah, because they pop up more.
Yeah.
The smaller ones could be just scrolled away because you even haven't seen that it's a link.
Okay.
And this is the one where we get to the badge beyond code. No, Keynote.
Die Website ist nicht erreichbar.
Erreichbar.
Erreichbar. Near, close enough. Come on. Erreichbar.
Sorry, banners. Okay. This the original tool is of Versal. They have this thing you can deploy to Versal. It uses Versal functions, and it generates an image from HTML. So if you want to create your very own one, Versal, it's something like this. OG image here. You can fork it and put in your own HTML. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere. Any of these files has HTML. You can also put in your own CSS and whatever you want. And by default, they have this cool configuration view here, so you can switch to. This is a customized one from Beyond Code. You have different styles. You can put in the name of your package. So
that's something I'll need to do.
Translatable. This package is so cool. I don't know. Does it support emojis? No, it doesn't. And you can choose the package manager. So Composer for all the PHP ones, npm yarn. It adjusts this line down here. So we have a Composer package, and it's
I'm gonna do
translatable.
I'm gonna do that for the Laravel's package.
So we get to go back to light and normal style. You can pick one of these logos. So Laravel, PHP, and they have, I think, Font Awesome for version 4 icons. So you can
emoji,
yeah, it's not the emojis. It's the icon fonts, SVGs, whatever. You can say if you want this small watermark down here, yes or no. And if you are happy with it, right click, save, and
very
gets
cool.
this image, and it has the perfect proper width and height for this social image stuff. So you can just take it and say upload an image and pick your image, upload it, and you have a cool
I'm doing that for the Laravel's package. That's cool. That's very clever.
Some checkboxes you have here is these features. So you have to enable sponsorships. I think it's on by default if you have this .github repository. But if you don't have this, you would have to create this funding YAML in each repository, so it's off by default. Wikis is something I disable all the time because wikis are, in my opinion, a bad place to manage knowledge because you don't have any markdown files you could export or deploy to somewhere else or whatever. So if you want to change your look and feel or switch from GitHub to Versal, Netlify, whatever, this isn't possible with wikis. you can restrict access, allow, or enable, disable issues. So if you say use it and leave me alone, you can disable issues and say use it as is and do whatever you want. Preserve this repository is, you've possibly seen it on Twitter or on some profiles. They have started this GitHub archive program where they put code on some super solid hard drives and put them in the Arctic snow. So humans 1,000 years later can use our open source code and say, who the hell has created this? Table of contents is a new one. I think they've released it today or yesterday. They've added this small thing here.
Oh, cool.
An auto-generated table of contents of your README file.
Can I just ask, how do you keep up with all those new releases? And how did you know about this? Like, how do you know?
Ned has Twittered it, and so he's Twittered it today. And I've seen it when I've opened one of my repository. I've seen this, this one here.
You paid too much attention. Like, I would just scroll way past that. I would be off, Okay.
It's much more obvious on mobile devices. So if you have, it was on my phone, and here you notice this small button a lot faster. And this is also cool that it works on mobile, because on mobile it's much more important to quickly jump to the changelog and open it. So
so clever.
What else do we have?
Well, I have to say we are past 2 hours now, so we might have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I did say we wanted to make it shorter today. Oh well. We tried.
I didn't want it to respond on Twitter and pop the bubble right after you stated.
It's just GitHub. How long can it take, possibly? Okay.
You can spend hours with everything.
I can see that. I use GitHub daily, but I just don't look for these things. It's just like I'm so stuck in my way of doing things that unless somebody like you, I read something somewhere, it just brings my attention to what's possible. I just keep going, my own ways. But this is really clever.
With the issue templates, which are pretty useful if you have some and click new issue. Your user has to choose, is it a bug report, feature request, question, or security? So we want to ask for a new feature. And in this case, this body box is pre-filled. And I've seen 3 types of people. Person 1, simply ignoring this template and writing, I want to whatever I want, possibly above or below this template.
Person 2, select everything, delete everything.
I don't care about your template. And person 3 doing it the right way. So I want to, as a maintainer, I can really tell you, if there's an issue template and you don't use it, I have a very simple and cool feature, and it's called close. So
do you even tell them, please use the template, or just close it?
It depends. It really depends.
Your mood, how late in the day it is.
On things like this, and also how he've used the 2 inputs. So there are even people just saying, here, I want to, and not caring about the length. So they will type in a whole sentence, ignoring the whole body, and submit it. And this is the case when I definitely immediately just click close. Because really, I have to spend my time to answer you and fulfill your feature request if you not even have the 2 minutes to fill out my form, which makes it easier for me as a maintainer to get what you want.
Yeah, makes sense.
So no way.
You know what we should do after this video? We should, well, you should really, because I'm probably not gonna do like write a blog post with all those little tips, like, or just at least I should probably do those timestamps on the video. Just say like at this minute we talk about this and that and that, because you've said so many, like the discussion we've had about what it's like to, you know, for maintainers of open source. I think these things should be really, we should shout about this, and like things about, you know, for example, these templates, you know, simple things can make things easier. I don't think people talk about it enough. So, and this is a long video, and if anyone, you know, watches it 2 hours all the way through, great. But I don't think many people will. So if we either do like a timestamps, or based on this video, then write a blog post that it's easier for people to read, because I think it's important.
Isn't there any artificial intelligence that can create a blog post from spoken text?
There's your new next project. Go for it. That would be.
When we are talking about thanks and so on, there is a composer thanks command. I think you have to install it from Symfony. Which is a pretty, discussed thing. There are people saying it's cool. There are people saying it's a waste of whatever, of time or code. I'm a fan of it because, if we are honest, if we search for an open source package that solves a problem for us, and we have like 3 packages. One, there are some things we check. So we have this package open, and the first thing we possibly check is, when was the last commit? Okay, 8 days ago is okay. If here is 2 years ago, it's already dangerous. But if we have 2 active packages out of these 3, another thing we check is the stars of the repository, because it's a kind of
validation,
rating of the package and validation that there are users using it in combination with the downloads, for example, here. So, okay, 800,000 downloads and 600 stars seems like a good package. And also, like a check, okay, there aren't only 800,000 people downloading at once to see it doesn't work. But there are at least 600 people who think this package really works in a good way. And if you compare it to like Facebook likes or Twitter likes, there's one major difference I've noticed during time. GitHub has one of the most solid and aggressive spam and bot protections in the universe. I've seen it one time when I created a second account. I needed to test some stuff, and just also to test things like this, I've started like 2 or 3 of my packages or repositories. These stars were revoked 1 or 3 days later because GitHub has whatever kind of detections that this user doesn't have his own repositories, is only there to star things and check out code. So these stars aren't really valid. And this means that if there are 600 stars, it means that there are very likely really 600 people using and rating this package. So not 600 fake accounts, or like on Instagram where you can buy 500 likes for $50 or whatever. These are really valid stars. And with Composer Thanks, it's really easy because you create your application and just run Composer Thanks, and it will star every dependency in your project. So you don't have to open all these projects you own and start them and blah. Just call Composer Thanks and you are done.
That's very clever.
For me, for example, I've put it into my Composer JSON as a script in the scripts section. So this is possibly the last section I want to talk about.
Yeah, possibly.
I'm in talking mood today.
Go for it.
So
Thanks.
one
Yeah.
thing is you have to register this thanks command in case you are running it on an environment where you don't have Symfony thanks installed already.
Yeah.
So you don't end up with this command doesn't exist, exception, whatever. And I use it on post dump autoload. So this is called on every dump autoload or after every dump autoload. So after every install, update, require, or just composer dump autoload, it calls composer thanks. So I can't install a dependency without thanking it.
Oh, that's very good. Again, I didn't know about this one. That's nice.
This makes it super easy for me.
Yeah.
I also have some stuff I like here, like I get a lot of issues of people forgetting to call config clear, for example, and running config cache on local environment, which is a bad idea in its own, but you definitely should call config clear in this case then. And that's why I put it in my also post autoload dump. So I run a composer update and I definitely have a cleared environment, no config cache, no view cache, no route cache, which ensures that every package I install will definitely work.
Yeah. Again, this is a good thing to do. Right, I'm going to have to wrap it up because what time is it? It's 7:15 my time, 8:15 your time. Friday evening, like we should really be doing something.
Prime time started in Germany, so possibly a few people left us alone to watch a cool movie.
Oh, there you go. Well, thank you so much. This has been really. I'll have to put something together because there are so many things I didn't know. At least I need to do the timestamps on the video.
Yeah.
And if anything, I'm probably gonna tweet a few of those things I've learned today, or you go for it. One of us should, because
feel free to do it.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Regarding the blog posts, I've posted it last week or so, or early this week, that I've officially stopped blogging because it's not the format I enjoy for my own, because it's pretty one way. So you publish a blog post and possibly someone comments on Twitter or whatever, but you don't get the real feedback. Like if we two are on the stream discussing something, I'm talking about it, you're asking a question, I can answer it, and also stuff. And for me, it was too much time and energy that were required to write a blog post because I'm not the writer, and primarily also not in English. So I have to put my knowledge into sections and sentences and reduce my code examples to the minimum, but also the amount really needed to understand it. And it's really a lot of time that goes into blogging. So props to all who do it. But it's not what I will do during my life. I will definitely share some knowledge on Twitter, and I'm thinking about ways to get this, and I think I'm streaming also with you, possibly during the next week, some more, and possibly with others. So if there's someone watching who also want to stream or discuss whatever with me or get a review on his code, and is fine to do it on stream, I'm definitely willing and available. And I think this is a format I enjoy more because it's more interactive. It gets more feedback, and
I'm just making notes of all the things I should do. Right, honestly, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much. Thank you for whoever joined. And let's see if there's anything in the comments now. Hamed, thank you. It was a great session. Oh yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it was like I just didn't know what really considering how much I use GitHub. I don't know much about it, obviously. But yeah, thank you so much, and we will see when we're going to do this next. we've finished this
Yeah.
Laravel's package, and yeah, we'll be in touch. Right.
It's not really finished, but it's definitely a
I'll
stage
work
where
on it,
everyone
yeah.
can contribute. So also all watchers who are willing to get the first open source contribution, feel free to improve the package.
Yeah.
And
I'm
don't
gonna
hesitate
push,
to create your own package.
Yeah. Yes. And you do use skeleton. Don't do it from scratch. Okay. Well, have a nice Friday evening. Have a nice weekend, everyone. And I'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.